There exists a rare kind of people in this world, born with what scientists call the super male gene. From birth, they almost completely lack the ability to control emotions and take pleasure in killing. Yet, there's another group of people who share nearly the same genetic traits, but instead of turning into monsters, they become brilliant geniuses. In 2021, the suspenseful Korean drama Mouse, starring Lee Sung-ji, took the world by storm. The question is, what made it so irresistibly captivating to millions of viewers? Late one night, a young girl lied about her family being in a car accident and tricked a kind-hearted woman into following her to the so-called accident site. But kindness led the woman straight into a deadly trap.
저기 아저씨.
The next day, divers discovered her headless body at the bottom of a river. With her death, the number of recent victims rose to 18. The police called the killer the headhunter, and fear swept through society. Lawmakers gathered to discuss how to respond. Genetic researcher Daniel revealed a shocking discovery. There exists a special group of people who, from birth, lack the gene that regulates human emotion. Even more terrifying, this gene is hereditary and almost identical to the gene that creates geniuses. In other words, among those carrying this gene, 1% may become geniuses, while the remaining 99% could turn into killers. To prevent future tragedies, Daniel proposed conducting genetic testing before babies are born to screen for the pathological gene. If a match is found, the fetus could be terminated without requiring parental consent. This proposal caused an uproar in Parliament. When the votes were cast, the result was a tie, leaving the final decision to the council chairman. Because his wife was pregnant, he ultimately voted against it. Han Seo-jun is a neurosurgeon, and his wife Ji-eun is pregnant with his child. Daniel, his longtime friend, once had a sister named Jennifer, who loved Han Seo-jun deeply, but during a trip, she was murdered by the headhunter, and Han Seo-jun was the only one who survived.
그놈은 아직 못 잡았지?
7년이나 지났는데 뭐.
미안해.
네가 왜 미안해?
That trauma haunted him ever since. Daniel comforted his friend, urging him to cherish the arrival of his second child and believe that Jennifer would be watching over him from above. After their talk, Han Seo-jun drove Daniel back to his hotel and then set out alone for home. That snowy night, a family of 4 drove around searching for a campsite. Unfamiliar with the area and lacking navigation, they circled aimlessly until spotting another car ahead. The father got out to ask for directions, and after receiving guidance, they finally arrived at the campsite. The owner had closed the site 2 days earlier due to heavy snow but allowed them to stay, warning that they'd have to fetch their own water. The father considered leaving, but the children's excitement changed his mind. He built a fire for a barbecue while the mother went to the spring to fetch water. Worried about his wife's safety, the man followed her, but suddenly heard her scream. A man dressed in black was about to attack her. She pleaded for mercy, but the man remained unmoved. Just as he raised his weapon, the father charged from behind, shouting for his wife to run. Terrified, the mother dragged her 2 children into the car, desperately trying to start the engine, but the freezing cold made it impossible to ignite.
엄마, 아빠는? 아빠 어딨어? 아빠도.
The man in black slowly appeared in front of them, holding the father's severed head. Fighting back her terror, the mother pushed her children down under the seats and watched as the killer approached. The 2 brothers trembled in silence. To protect them, the mother decided to draw the killer's attention away. She whispered to her eldest son, "There's a hidden compartment under the dining seat. Push hard and it'll open. Take your brother and hide inside. Don't make a sound. No matter what happens."
동생 지켜야 되는 거 알지? 약속해. 엄마랑 아무 소리 내면 안 돼? 응? 엄마랑 약속해.
That was the last embrace she gave them. Following her instructions, the older brother took his younger brother and hid inside the secret compartment, while their mother hid nearby, praying that the man wouldn't find them. but the shattering of glass crushed her hope. Cornered, she ran out to lure the attacker away, but within seconds he caught up to her, unarmed. She had no chance against him. The younger brother burst out of hiding and saw his mother being struck down before his eyes. She fought desperately to shield her children, but her body soon fell lifeless to the ground. To stop his brother from screaming, the older boy covered his mouth until he fainted. Terror, despair, and grief overwhelmed him, but his mother's words echoed in his mind. As the older brother, he had to protect his younger brother. Forcing down his fear, he hid his brother inside a suitcase, locked it, and pushed it under the seat. Then, as the car window shattered again, he crawled into a cupboard, peeking through the crack. The killer was about to leave when he suddenly noticed the suitcase. He raised his hammer and began smashing the suitcase again and again, and the lock was on the verge of breaking open. The brother remembered his mother's final plea. He knew that for his younger brother to survive, he had to sacrifice himself. Finally, the man took off his mask, and his face was clearly revealed before the terrified boy. When the police arrived after the campsite owner's call, no bodies were found. The older brother was in critical condition, barely clinging to life, while the younger one sat in shock, his mind shattered by what he had witnessed. At this moment, Detective Park was extremely anxious, because years ago, his own daughter had also died at the hands of the headhunter. He desperately tried to make the younger brother describe the killer's face, but the boy was still deeply traumatized and too terrified to recall anything. Seeing that Park was losing control, his colleagues quickly pulled him aside. Just then, the younger brother suddenly pointed at a poster on the wall, his hand trembling as he spoke. At the very moment the boy identified the killer's true face, Ji-eun suddenly realized that her husband was nowhere to be found. She pulled back the curtain just in time to see Han Seo-jun walking in, his arms full of firewood. He noticed that there were 3 snowmen in the yard, but didn't think much of it. Moments later, the sound of sirens pierced the air as police cars surrounded the house. Detective Park arrived with an arrest warrant and immediately handcuffed Han Seo-jun because the young boy had identified him as the murderer. Not knowing what was happening, Ji-eun could only watch in shock as the police searched every corner of the house. But after turning the place upside down, they found no weapons or bodies. Just when everyone thought the search would end in failure, the younger brother suddenly rolled down the car window and lunged at Han Seo-jun with a knife, slashing at his face in rage. Detective Park rushed forward to stop him, and in the struggle, the boy crashed into one of the snowmen. The snowman's head tumbled to the ground, revealing a black plastic bag hidden inside. Inside the bag was a severed head, and the boy instantly recognized his mother's hairpin. Ji-eun stared at the horrifying scene, and in that instant, every beautiful memory she had shared with her husband shattered completely. Soon after, the media reported on the case. Facing the cameras, Han Seo-jun claimed he had no idea how the snowman appeared in the yard. Ji-eun watched the news broadcast, memories of everything they had shared flashing through her mind, until her gaze finally froze on the camera. Daniel went with her to the police station, where Ji-eun gently asked a heartbreaking question. Can someone with a troubled mind truly understand love?
사이코패스는 태생적으로 자기 말곤 누구도 사랑할 수 없어요.
Daniel firmly believed that Han Seo-jun was innocent, convinced that he genuinely loved Ji-eun. The court ruled that the eyewitness testimony was insufficient and dismissed the prosecution's case, allowing Han Seo-jun to be released. When questioned by reporters, he expressed understanding for Detective Park's anger, saying he knew what it meant to lose a loved one, and promised to pray for him, hoping the real killer would soon be caught.
우리 집 앞에 그런 끔찍한 짓을 해놓은 그 헤드헌터란 놈이 반드시 잡히기를 저도 간절히... 지훈아.
Ji-eun looked at him coldly, Han Seo-jun thought she was simply frightened, but to his shock, Shi-eun publicly declared, he is the killer. That night, she had seen Han Seo-jun building the snowman in their yard with her own eyes and had even taken photos as proof. After sending Daniel off that night, Han Seo-jun unexpectedly crossed paths with the family of four. The super male gene inside him was completely awakened, driving him into a sudden frenzy that led to that horrific massacre.
똑똑해, 우리 마누라.
너 왜 나랑 결혼했어? 말해. 너 왜 나랑 결혼했어? 사랑하지도 않으면서 왜?
뭐 일종의 종족 관식이랄까. 체포해! 마! 체포해!
Daniel's world collapsed in an instant. He finally understood the truth behind his younger sister's death all those years ago. Before the police could intervene, he shoved Han Seo-jun into the interrogation room and personally heard every chilling detail of how Jennifer was murdered. Ji-eun later woke up in the hospital. Daniel told her that there was a lab in Korea capable of testing fetuses for the super male gene. Ji-eun was torn apart. She couldn't bear to harm her unborn child. Yet she feared that one day he might become a killer. Holding on to a last glimmer of hope, she went through with the test, only to receive the cruelest result. The fetus did carry the super male gene. By then, her pregnancy was already too advanced for an abortion. Ji-eun sat in front of a vending machine and cried helplessly. At that moment, she met another pregnant woman who offered her a tissue and shared her own story. The woman said her husband had once been part of a British research team. When she was 6 weeks pregnant, she participated in a genetic test that showed her baby also carried the super male gene. But her husband had lied, saying everything was fine. Later, he died in a car accident. If she aborted the baby, she would lose her only chance at motherhood. Her husband had died while saving someone, and she believed that a man like him could never father a monster. So she decided to give birth to prove that Daniel's research was wrong. Han Seo-jun was convicted of brutally murdering more than 20 people and sentenced to death by the Supreme Court. 5 years later, a young boy in class kept scratching his arm. The teacher tried to send him to the nurse's office but froze when she saw the cold, hostile look in his eyes. During recess, the boy killed a rabbit with his own hands just to see if it was pregnant because it had gotten fatter.
팔은 왜 그렇게 긁어?
애들한테 짜증나는데 얘들한테 풀면 안 되니까 저한테 푸는 거예요.
지금은 애들 없잖아.
선생님한테 짜증나요. 이상한 눈으로 보잖아요.
내가?
As time passed, the boy's genetic nature began to surface. His classmates avoided him, and his teacher, disturbed by his dark drawings, warned his father that the child might have psychological issues. When the father discovered that his son had killed the rabbit, he was furious and slapped him hard across the face. Back home, the boy watched his father feed the fish, then lovingly cuddle the family dog. His eyes darkened with resentment. When his father left the room, he poured a toxic chemical into the fish tank. The dog barked at him uncontrollably, so he picked it up, planning to take care of it, and threatened his younger brother, saying, "If you tell anyone, you'll regret it." When the father came home and saw all the dead fish, he was enraged. The younger brother hesitated to speak, but their sister revealed the truth. By the time the father ran to the river, the dog had already been killed. Overcome with anger, he beat the boy violently, nearly to death. Not long after, the boy tricked his younger brother into going to the spot where the dog was buried. then pushed him into a pit. He raised a shovel, ready to bury his brother alive, but Ji-eun arrived just in time to stop him.
죽어! 넌 낳는 게 아니었어.
Even then, Ji-eun couldn't bring herself to harm him. The boy ran to a church and prayed desperately, begging God not to let him turn into a monster, but there was no answer. In the end, he completely fell into darkness and became a murderer. He pulled out the knife he had used to kill his father and slowly walked toward his younger brother and sister. 15 years later, the boy had grown into a man. On his wall, he pinned a photo of a recently murdered woman and silently planned his next killing. I'm your narrator for Korean dramas. See you in the next episode.